Glasses.
I should have brought mine.
Glasses and
Glasses and
glasses.
You guys come on and stand right with us.
Good afternoon. I'm Pat Wright, State Superintendent of Public Instruction. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to today's event. I'm so excited to be able to launch a new educational technology initiative for pre-K-12 education. Today's announcement is intended to take learning outside the schoolhouse walls and take learning and teaching and learning actually into the hands of both teachers and students. I'm joined today by our own Governor Kaine, our business education partners, our educators who are involved in the pilot project, and I'll come back a little bit later on and introduce some of those partners. But I just want to say a few words about what this initiative means to me and where I think it fits overall in K-12 education. As you all know, we live in a rapidly changing technological world where handheld technologies such as the one that I have in my hand, and of course many of you are toting your cell phones, your Blackberries, or whatever you have tucked away and on vibrate or quiet. Handheld technologies are the common today, the common norm for many of our students as well as teachers. And we want to take full advantage of what is commonly used both in the home as well as in school. You know, teachers are always looking for ways to innovate. We're always challenging teachers to extend the learning opportunities outside the classroom. We want to make sure that we're providing them with the tools to make their lessons more engaging and exciting. We want students inspired, and I firmly believe that the use of educational technologies is one way to do that. I've been an advocate of technology for some time. You know, I hate to admit, but you know, the Atari days and the days of the old G3s. I think I have surplus all of those now, but I was one of the few mathematics educators that pioneered some of these technologies many years ago. Our Learning Without Boundaries initiative, and now especially today our Virginia on iTunes U initiative, will place in the hands of classroom teachers the iPod, commonly used tool today, placed in the hands of teachers and students an iPod so that both the teacher and the student can go onto an iTunes website and download free, and that is the operative word, download free educational resources that have been carefully selected for our teachers and students, carefully selected for students and teachers in Virginia that support our standards of learning. Today's announcement aims to take advantage of all the personal technologies. We hope that when students are out on the playground, in the gym, taking a break from listening to their music and watching their videos, that perhaps some of that free time could be switched over to listening to lessons that have been carefully prepared for them, or experimenting with 3D models in mathematics or physics, using a graphing simulator to graph equations and look to see how those the graphs are forming and make predictions. So we're hoping to take advantage of the time that students and teachers have, let's say, you know, in the airport or waiting for a train, to take good advantage of these handheld technologies with carefully selected materials for them. Virginia on iTunes U will make available anytime, anywhere, and by anyone, educational resources that can help stretch the imagination of our young people and help support teachers in their quest for excellence. Today's event was made possible by many business education partners, and I'm going to attempt to name a few key partners today. One of our partners, actually a true supporter and advocate of technology, is not with us today, but I want to make sure that he gets the message wherever he is. Secretary of Technology Anish Chopra, make sure that we carry that message back to him, that we're so grateful in the Department of Education for his encouragement of our pioneering efforts and his support. I'm also grateful to Apple Incorporated for their business partnership. Without Apple, we would not have available to us the iTunes platform, free. Again, free to all of our educators. We would not have this platform for a dedicated Virginia site. With us today from Apple, I want to recognize Jason Ediger, Director of iTunes U and Mobile Learning. With Jason is Jeff Lloyd, Jenna Collins, and Paul Faust. I also want to recognize Verizon Foundation. Verizon Foundation has made available to us its Thinkfinity online resources. Once again, free for downloading onto iTunes and then downloading onto the iPod. Representing the Verizon Foundation today is Steve Clementi, the Director of External Affairs for Verizon. So Steve, thank you for being here. Also, I want to recognize the Blue Ridge Public Broadcast Station. James Baum, not James Bond, as I'm told, it's James Baum, the President and CEO, who's provided support for this initiative, support and content. Now, the overall leadership of this initiative is being provided by Radford University and Virginia Tech. And I want to now acknowledge the tremendous support from Dr. Patricia Shoemaker, Dean of the College of Education and Human Development at Radford University. With her is Dr. Matt Dunleavy, Assistant Professor of Instructional Technology in the School of Teacher Ed and Leadership. And also at Virginia Tech, Dr. Michael Evans, Assistant Professor in the Department of Learning Sciences and Technologies. And of course our school partners, because this is what it's all about. Representing Montgomery County today is Guyleen Wood-Setzer, the principal of Auburn Middle School, which she'll be speaking momentarily, and Angela Williams, a fourth grade teacher, and that's really where the rubber meets the road. A fourth grade teacher from Christiansburg Elementary School who is using the iPod and these online resources in her classroom. And finally, I want to thank, of course, my staff. I get to stand up here and talk about all these wonderful projects, but really all of you know the brains behind our Ed Tech initiative is certainly Lan Nugent, our Assistant Superintendent for Technology and Career Education, and Tammy McGraw. Dr. Tammy McGraw is our Director of Ed Technology. And anyone who knows Tammy McGraw knows that over the weekend she was sweating big bullets, making sure that everything was up and running, emailing me on my BlackBerry, Steve, emailing me, trying to assure me that everything was going to be fine for today's launch. So with that, I want to turn the podium over to Lan Nugent, who's going to give you a little bit more detail about the project itself. Then we'll turn to our principal to make some remarks, and then I'll come back with the distinct honor of recognizing our very special guest today.
I guess the first thing I'd like to do is thank Pat for reminding me to turn off my cell phone. It's quite embarrassing. I was at a meeting and had the cell phone ring 3 times from the same person. Kept shutting it off and won't do that again. This is an exciting day. We have spent an awful lot of time in Virginia trying to put technology in place so that it can help kids learn better. And I think in many ways this is sort of the capstone of that effort. I think that one of the things that you have to do in order to educate today's children is you have to engage them. And frankly, I don't think there's anything more engaging than access to a laptop, access to an iPod, or an iPhone. We're going to talk about basically 3 things today. The first one is we're going to announce Virginia and iTunes University. Incredibly exciting. I think that people out there that had the opportunity to look at this are going to see just incredible work. I saw the governor looking over at this site because it just draws you to it. The applications on there are really, really incredible. We also are going to talk a little bit about the Learning Apps Challenge, which the governor is going to announce today. That's another exciting project, again, from the fertile brain of Anish Chopra. And then the last one we're going to talk about is a little bit about the Learning Without Boundaries. And when we conclude, you'll see all the Macs around, and we have iPod touches, so you can take a look and see what's going on. iTunes University, if you've ever gone to download iTunes and listen to music, you may think, iTunes University, what does that have to do with education? Well, if you go down through, you'll see something that says iTunes U, you click on that, and what you'll see is courses for higher ed. And now you'll see K-12 information up there also, and as you can see from the site that we have a lot of resources for teachers, and that's really what the focus of our iTunes U site is. What I said to Tammy as we were going through this is we want to create a site, just like iTunes itself, where people would go on and want to purchase the things that were on there, but as Pat said many times, they're free. You don't have to purchase them. So that's a little added part to it. I also think, I had a little conversation with the Apple folks, and they said something about this as one of the best sites. I think it's the very best, and I'll leave that to you to judge. When you take a look, you can't beat anything other than having Mr. Jefferson at the head of this and then seeing those wonderful graphics as you're going through. We think that extending learning out of the classroom anytime, again, as Dr. Wright talked, whenever children are available, they don't see school as just going in the morning and leaving in the afternoon. They see it as a continuous experience, and I think that this adds exactly to it. Another thing that's going to be announced today is the Apps Challenge. Now, you may be wondering what an app is. It's actually an application, and I'm going to try to demonstrate one here. But the challenge is all about, in effect, having people develop applications that are fairly discreet, fairly simple, that people can use to help them accomplish a task. And in this particular case, what we're going to try to do is put the challenge out there for people to develop applications for an area that is very challenging in school. I don't know about any of you, but the hardest subject for me was math. I was more of a history type of person. And always struggle a little bit with math, as many people do. So the Apps Challenge will focus on middle school math. And what we're hoping people will end up doing will be to develop applications that will demonstrate to children how math works. For example, one of the challenges that people often run into is, I understand decimals, I understand fractions, but I don't understand how they can be the same. Well, you could develop an application that could show kids how to do that. A simple example, here's a lighter. You hit the touch and you open it up and you push it like that and it comes on and then it can be moved around. Pretty cool. I see some smiles out there. Well, that's what kids think too when they see this. They see that thing going and they're like, whoa, how do you do that? Well, if you can take a little application like that and develop...
After December 1, you can't do that anymore.
That's right. I have a couple other applications I could try. He probably doesn't want to see the beer one. But you see how much fun that is. And what ends up happening, we're hoping developers will develop applications like this, and just as much fun for kids to do, engage them in the learning process. If they like doing it, all those multiplication things that you do over and over that help you learn math, you're going to do it, you're going to have a great time with it. And then the final part of this I wanted to mention was that we're going to talk about today about something called Learning Without Boundaries. We put together some projects that, again, extended beyond the classroom so that students could go out and they could use some of these mobile devices to be able to do projects that they would do in school. I don't know about you, but when it came springtime and I was sitting in my classroom and I was looking out and watching all of those flowers develop, I thought, boy, I'd sure like to be out there. Where kids can go out, they can take their mobile device, they can connect to the internet, they can go to all kinds of applications, and even better than that, they can interact with the device and send information back and forth. So that's just an incredible type of thing. We'll talk about that. The collaboration has been with Virginia Tech and Radford University, and I just applaud them for the great things that they're doing. I also want to mention when we were talking about the Apps Challenge, Andrew Levasseur and his class at VCU have done an awful lot of work in that, and they're going to demonstrate some of the things that they've done today. They turned it into a class project that we were talking a little bit before we got started, and it's kind of like one of those 150-hour-a-week projects that they're working on. The final thing I'd like to do is I would like to introduce our principal from Auburn Middle School in Montgomery County, Kaine Setzer, and she's going to say a couple of words about what she's doing in her class with Learning Without Boundaries.
Dr. Wright and the governor and Mr. Land for all giving me this opportunity to come and tell you a little bit about our school and how we're using the iPods. Very excited when we were asked to be a part of the Learning Without Borders grant, and it really excited me because I am a tech person. I was a ITRT before becoming a principal, and really wanted to be on the cutting edge of things. My school, Auburn Middle School, was one of those schools that was a failing school before I took over, and so we've looked at ways of improving reading and math, and I do believe that this is going to be one of those ways in which we can continue to be improving to be one of the best schools. As I walk into classrooms that are using it, and I have a 6th grade math class and an 8th grade English class, I'm amazed at the work that the students are able to do. We don't have a lot of computers in our school, and so this is one way for our students to get out onto the internet, for teachers to do podcasting so that students can look at something that they've missed, something that they need to work on. Already we are looking at what's going to happen next year. I've talked to the gifted teacher about doing some enrichment activities. I've talked to teachers about doing some remediation, and I've even completed my first podcast before I read a book, and then the students were able to look at that online and even project it up on the smartboard. So we're really looking at different ways that we can use these iPod Touches in our classroom to promote learning so that our school can become the best middle school in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
To officially kick off today's challenge, we have with us a very special guest, and it's indeed my honor to present to you Virginia's, what I call Virginia's #1 advocate for public education, one who inspires us every day to reach for excellence. His Excellency, the Honorable Timothy M. Kaine, is 70th Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
And I want to thank Pat for her kind words and also just underlined her gracious comments about her team at DOE. This is very innovative, and it's one of a number of innovative things DOE has done recently on technology issues that I'll mention. And, hey, look, only Virginia would be savvy enough to have an assistant superintendent of technology with the first name of Land. So some of you get that joke, and some of you just look it up when you get back to the office. But it really is a treat to be here. And what I want to do, you've heard about what this is, Virginia on iTunes University. You've heard about what it is. I'm going to talk a little about what, but what I really want to talk about is I kind of want to connect it up. I want to connect it to Virginia history, and I want to connect it to things we're doing right now in the way we govern Virginia. And then at the end I'm going to announce a fun competition that Lan has already described. So to connect it up to Virginia history, where you can see the front of our website that allows people to get into iTunes U is Thomas Jefferson, and Jefferson had this beautiful quote, and this is a paraphrase, I didn't write it down, but it was written by Jefferson and is still contained in most of its form in the Virginia Bill of Rights. And it says that progress in government and all else depends upon the broadest possible diffusion of knowledge among the general population. Now, Jefferson was not writing in a day when there was an internet, or when there were iPods, or when there was a storehouse of digitized information and knowledge that basically enabled anybody with internet access to have access to almost all the knowledge in the world, in just about any language in which it is written. He couldn't have foreseen that, and yet what was he saying when he said progress depends upon the broadest possible diffusion of knowledge? You could look at these technologies and the access that people have to content, and basically it is Jefferson's dream realized in an amazing way. And so that is kind of the connection between this particular project and Virginia history. We were founded by, one of our founding fathers was somebody who believed passionately in diffusion of knowledge, in the availability of information. He believed in that for its own sake. He believed in that in terms of making education powerful. But he also believed if you did those things, if you diffuse knowledge, you would put in people's hands the capacity to govern themselves, capacity to make better decisions. And so you were not just helping individuals, but you were guaranteeing the progress of a society if you made knowledge available and diffused to all. And that's why we're here. Just a couple of weeks ago, I announced with Pat and with others from DOE a really exciting project called the Virginia Physics Flexbook. The notion of why buy textbooks that are out of date, especially in science areas, when you can create an online textbook, save student monies for buying the books, always update them and have them available, make them collaborative projects that are worked on by a number of scientists. And we put up a physics textbook online, calling it a Flexbook, prepared by Virginia educators, both high school and college educators, with very specialized curriculum that can engage students in things that are very relevant to the geographic areas where they live, for example. And this Virginia on iTunes U is kind of a next step, but mining the same mine, which is what are innovative ways that we can put information out there so that students can use them to be successful. The Virginia on iTunes University has about 300 items that are currently posted, educational curricular items in the K-12 area to help you learn as a teacher to maybe learn how to present material, or as a student learn better lessons so that you can be proficient in them and move on in an accelerated way. The site's going to be a great resource for students, great resource for teachers, great resource for parents. And as it catches on, more and more will be posted, and whatever your particular interest or area where you need to work either to learn a little more or figure out how to teach your students a little more, there will be material there for you. I'm really proud of where Virginia is in our educational outcomes. We're in the top 3 in the country in the percentage of our kids that take and pass AP exams. We recently received a really good accolade for the educational performance of our students who do not speak English as their first language on the NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Performance. And by most of these measures, when you can compare Virginia against others, we are very, very strong. But one thing we know is this: we can't be complacent because the standard keeps changing worldwide. And so the only way we'll stay at the top is being the most innovative and coming up with the most new ideas and finding ways to engage students more and more. And I think there is a consensus among educators really around the world now to steal a phrase. The Singapore educational system kind of started to structure their curriculum around a concept that they call teach less, learn more. Put more tools in the hands of students to learn rather than focus on the teaching. And good teachers will always be at the key to how this happens, but new ways where students can learn and be active learners will enable us to be innovative and collaborative, and that's what this is about. Now, let me connect it to Jefferson. Let me connect it to something we're doing right now. We use information in the way we run our government in a very neutral way, I think. And that is maybe because of our historical pedigree with the Jefferson comment, but we have really tried to use information in a dramatic way in all of Virginia government. Many of you know that Governing Magazine every 3 years does an assessment of the best managed state, and they give each state a grade in 4 categories. People, we got the best grade in the United States last year, of any of the 50 states on people. Information, the way you use information, whether it's data on performance, whether it's information that's available for policymakers or journalists or students or people who want to learn about content or what the state's doing, we had the best grade in the United States on that. Money management, we got an A- grade among the very top states. Infrastructure, we got a B+. It was our only B, but adjustment, I think, because we got a ways to go in infrastructure. But in some infrastructure areas like broadband, we're very, very strong compared to other states. So to connect this to kind of what we're doing with government, information and using information the right way is something that we really take pride in Virginia. So to our business partners, Apple and Verizon and the educational institutions that have made this possible, you're kind of right where we want to be as a state government, new ways to make information available. This particular project was helped by something we call the Productivity Improvement Fund. We have a kind of I guess it would be like a tripod, 3 legs of a stool that we use in trying to manage state government performance. Governor Warner started something called the Management Scorecard, which looks at internal measures of agency performance, fiscal controls, personnel, purchasing. I put in place performance outcome goals and measurements for all state agencies. The third item, the one that we're working on last, is we're calling it productivity improvement. So we want to have a culture of ongoing productivity improvement so that we're always thinking about new ways to do things and do them better, do them cheaper, and make them interface better with citizens. The Productivity Improvement Fund is a fund in state government. The legislature's approved it in the budget, where we basically do grants. We take grants from state agencies. If you have an idea that if you got $50,000 or $100,000, you could do a great project, apply, we'll give you a grant, and then you come up with something really interesting. This project is the Learning Without Boundaries is a project that was funded through our PIF program. And it's all designed around using these new technologies to come up with new ways to educate students. So finally, the announcement, and Lan referred to it, but let me get a little more specific. You can have fun with this stuff, and so we want to challenge developers of software, games, ideas out there to not just accept the content that we have posted or that is being posted on the university, but design new applications to help students. A common one, and Lan mentioned this, is in the kind of 6th grade area, the relations between fractions, decimals, and percentages. Students learn those things. They have to learn how to make them related. One of our educational goals has been trying to get more middle schoolers to take algebra. That only happens as students in the 6th grade, for example, really begin to understand some of these concepts, do well in their SOLs, so that they're ready to take algebra in the middle grade years. So what we're doing is we're having an apps competition. We're calling it the Virginia Mobile Learning Apps Development Challenge. Can't believe they couldn't have thought something simpler than that. The challenge is going to target 6th grade mathematics and try to challenge developers to come up with apps that will help us improve our 6th grade math scores. School districts are currently funding a lot of remedial programs to try to get students to catch back up. We are trying to push a greater algebra penetration in middle school students. So we're asking developers to create apps that are related to specific mathematics subjects, such as this relation between fractions, decimals, and percentages. Applications have to be developed and then loaded to the Apple Ops Store by 5 p.m. on June 19th. So a little bit, about 2.5 months is what we're giving folks. The applications that are submitted are then going to be reviewed by a panel of judges, and the winner of the Virginia Mobile Learning Apps Challenge will be announced at the end of June at the National Education Computing Conference in D.C. Now, we got a huge brain pool among the 7.5 million Virginians. We have a lot of people who are not only skilled in technology, but skilled in pedagogy and strategies to help kids learn. This is an identified area, just like 3rd grade reading has been a focus, and AP and career certification has been a focus at the high school level. 8th grade algebra penetration has kind of been our middle grade focus, and this will help us do better. So to everybody out there who reads about this, the DOE has a kind of a submission form and rules of the contest that folks can become aware of. We're looking to get some great creativity. Sounds like we already have some with a big head start. And I would think that a lot of college classes might find this a great project to try to work on an app that might eventually be a winner and be singled out nationally as a great model. And the great thing about this, this is great for Virginia, but knowledge knows no boundary. Knowledge is not the exclusive property of anyone. Anybody in the world can get on this, take a look at these courses and these applications that will be developed and find something that will help them advance their own, either their own students' education or their own education. So thank you for being here today to Pat and Lan and Madam Principal. What a great job you're doing in Reiner, which is Auburn and Reiner, a beautiful community in the eastern part of Montgomery County. We're glad to have you here today, and to all who've been a part of this, especially our private sector partners. Thanks for being creative with us, and we're going to do a lot more of these. And so I just keep offering those free things, like Pat says. We'll keep doing more of these announcements. Yep. Thank you all very much.